And you can paint that over an old oil painting?
Yes, yes. So, sorry I didn't push record, but welcome to class 4, part 2 of tonalism class. And somebody reminded me, thank goodness, to push record. Takes a village, as I always say, to make a video. What I have there is an old painting, couple paintings deep probably, and I just put Fast Matte by Gamblin white paint over the top of it. It's one of my favorite surfaces. I really like it. But I don't know if they're still making these paints. They have a line out called Fast Dry, which may be that. It's kind of an expensive way to cover paintings because you're literally using oil paint. But I really like the surface. It's an alkyd-based paint, alkyd-based oil paint, which means fast drying, and it has a slight absorbency to it that I really like. But that's not going to be the point of this painting. The point of this painting is going to be that I'm using a very, very odd, never tried it before, limited palette of a brilliant pink, a green gold, and ultramarine blue. And we're gonna see what we can do to make it look similar, but not exactly like the reference photo. And you can see I bleached out the reference photo, taking out the clouds and the sky, a lot of the detail. So I'm just gonna be looking for big shapes and just seeing how these colors might play together and what kind of interesting harmony we can get out of this. I'm gonna try to do it in about 35 minutes or so, and that way we have time to look at your guys' beautiful work on our Padlet page. So yeah, let's just see. I'm a little bit nervous as always, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who missed part 1, you may want to kind of watch at least the last part of it, class 4, part 1, to kind of see what kind of interesting colors we were able to make using this very odd palette, right? What is it? Brilliant pink, green gold. And I actually, just cleaning the palette, put up my ultramarine blue, and then there's a little bit, I believe that's a Payne's gray. I'll try to avoid the Payne's gray just to keep kind of abiding by the rules that we set. I've added no paint thinner. That's just straight paint. I put on enough that I figure I can spread it around with a paper towel. I'm not going to be really using a wipe away method so much here. So there we go. We got a very interesting background color. It's kind of gold, kind of green, kind of interesting. And let's just do a quick sketch. I'm just going to dip into this pink. I'm just curious what this would do. Maybe add a little bit of that green gold. And let's just try to get our big shapes in. So my horizon line is right about there.
So the tone is the green gold, or the tone is
yeah. I could have probably done the pink. Could have done the ultramarine. It's probably going to create some different effects depending on what that underlying color is.
the background color looks Indian yellow.
It really does.
Look, yeah.
And remember when we were mixing it, we used a manganese blue hue and Indian yellow. So I'm wondering if in this combination, if that manganese blue doesn't wipe off a little faster than the
underlying Indian yellow like color. It's definitely greener in real life than it appears on the monitor. So I kind of got my big shapes. I should step back and kind of give them a quick test to see if things are working, or maybe this horizon line needs to be lower. But my next step, I'm just going to step back away from the easel because I'm so close I can't kind of see my big shapes, just in case. I do feel like I've split my painting a little bit here, meaning that my horizon line is in the middle, which I don't like to do, but maybe I can play it up so that this feels more like the horizon line up here, even though it's the tops of the trees. Yeah, does that design hurt anybody's feelings too much?
No.
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 No,
Good. All right. You guys are easy.
Well, we did make you use that pink.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, it was the green. I chose the pink on my own. So I'm going to go ahead and step back just to kind of see if I'm okay with this. I want to, make sure my horizon line's reasonably straight and that things have a balance to them. So I'm just going to step back, take a look at it for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to knock in my darks. So typically it's big shapes to small shapes. You see, I didn't refine anything. I hinted that there's going to be some grasses here and there, but the truth is when approaching a painting, I don't overly detail it. I just kind of know or hope that the detail will come. So I'm going to grab some of my ultramarine blue, mixing that with that green gold, which makes a nice dark color. Is this a good spot on the screen for everybody?
Yeah.
All right, so when I mix that pink in, you can see it makes the colors lighter. So there's definitely some white in that pink. So I'm just gonna, there we go. So you see, I saved the color, I pulled it aside. So you guys have seen me do multiple ways of approaching a painting. The wiping away method, where I just kind of covered it all. And now this would be maybe more traditionally how I would do like a plein air painting. Something I want to really knock in quickly is I just get in my big shapes. I look for my big values, my big lights and darks. And I'm just going to try blocking a lot of that in just to kind of lock down. And this will give me another chance to kind of look at the colors and see if they're playing well, and the shapes, if they're fitting together well. And so I try to keep things pretty simple. I want to figure out, where they're lying, where they meet the ground, what these big shapes are doing, how they're working together. Try not to think about things. Try to just think shapes, values, and then colors, with that little reminder in the back of my head that just believe that the detail will come. And I just have to believe that. I want to keep things almost abstract. Keep the paint reasonably thin. You can kind of hear the brush scrubbing against the canvas. I'm not using a huge amount of paint. I'm not painting super thick yet. I find if I jump right into my impressionistic brush strokes, if that's the direction I want to go, I can really end up wrestling with that later. Almost starts off like a no tan, meaning just black, just white, or just light and just dark. And I'm really just focused on on design at this point. How do these big shapes fit and play together? I'm thinking about the light and the shadow. I'm thinking about what areas are not getting the light, what areas are. Maybe I'm preserving those a little more. A lot of times when you're out plein air painting or painting on location, it is a bit of a race, unfortunately. It can be a very fun and relaxing thing to do, but at the same time, you got to keep moving. That light is moving. The scenery is changing. So I want to lock in the important information. And generally for me, that is that light and dark, that shadow pattern, that design. Want to not put in too much detail because then I have to paint around it a lot of times. These are almost like notes for myself. I've not painted one single bush, not painted one single blade of grass. They're just notes. Any questions at all on this messy, messy beginning of a painting? Can you guys kind of see how it's evolving and developing?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What size brush are you using?
I was gonna say a 6, and I'm right, a size 6. So that's good size. It covers well. It's also a hog hair bristle brush, so I can be pretty brutal to it. Can really kind of just push it down because again, I don't want my paint really thick at this point, so I'm just kind of scrubbing it down, getting it into its place. So a lot of times when I'm out plein air painting, or when I'm trying to get into a painting really quickly, a lot of times I will spend this time to kind of lock in where the shadows are, if they're in an interesting place, if they're lighting the trees or something's happening in the sky that I really like. Because again, I know it's going to change. I can always change with it. but a lot of times it's harder to chase something than it is to lock it in. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this so I have some mixing area here. We're going to take those three odd colors that we have, weird color combination, and we're going to just mix up some other colors and some different piles of color to see how do they play together, what might work. We did some experimenting, like I said, in the first part of this class. So to make the colors light, we put white with the green gold, and it made a very beautiful light, kind of a brownish gold color. I'll be curious, we didn't try light with white with just that bright pink. Might be fun to kind of come in and get that sky locked in with some interesting colors, and that way then we can come in and play with these greens. I'm going to squeeze out a bunch more of this green gold. It really is kind of a weak color. It's very transparent, so you can see it disappears completely, or it takes a lot of it to affect some of these other colors. So I'll just go ahead and squeeze out a bunch so I'm not spending too much time squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. We also have this very odd color, this vibrant, it's called Brilliant Pink by Michael Harding. When I met him, I asked him, what are some of your most odd colors? And this is one that he said I should buy, and I've had a great time playing with it. I actually bought another tube in the drawer here, just because it is really interesting. So let's go ahead and just mix up a couple colors. I'm going to be getting into the sky and water, which is going to be the brightest part of the painting. So I just want to make sure that I've got a clean area. We're going to ignore these colors. In fact, let me just remove those. Those are from our previous half of the class, just so even buy myself more space. I am used to painting on a much bigger palette. So I like a lot of space to move around and experiment and to kind of bend and test the colors and see what happens with them. So my first test is going to be that bright pink. It's just such an odd color, right? Not a color that you see on a lot of my paintings. So I'm just going to grab off a bunch of that, grab some of the white, and let's just see what happens when I lighten it. Creates a very creamy, fake strawberry milkshake kind of Pepto-Bismol color. Kind of interesting. I could see that being kind of fun, in out parts of the sky. It's very, like I said, very milky. Let's try mixing some of the green and neutralizing that a little bit and seeing what happens. So we've got the green, whatever was on my brush from the pink, maybe even more green. Now let's try some white into that. Gets kind of a nice, it's a little more earthy, a little more gold.
Gold pink. Nice.
Gold pink, yeah. Turns to
Salmony. It looks salmony.
salmony. Let's mix some more green into that. Salmony, a little yellower. So I'm just doing a bunch of quick experiments just to see. I'm going to mix these colors together so I don't lose all my mixing space. And I'm just going to clean my brush, and I'm going to try just the gold with mostly white. I want to see how light, and there we go.
That's nice.
Those play nicely together. Might be interesting. I'm gonna have to squeeze out a bunch more white. Historically, I'm very lazy about replacing colors, and I've really found it gets me in a lot of trouble. So I like to continually squeeze out. And again, that's one thing that's helpful with having a limited palette is these are all important colors to me because I have so few.
I would have never thought you'd be able to get those colors from the green gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see in my reference that there's not much color. It's almost just a value design. There's a little bit of, hinted at something, but I really can play this up. Like I'm almost thinking like, wow, wouldn't that be interesting if this tree is pink or
Mhm.
much pinker than I normally would? Maybe the light coming across is pinkish and really affecting things versus the gold that I normally do. So I'm kind of like, as I'm looking at these colors and seeing what they do as they appear, let's also get some of this pink and blue, ultramarine blue.
You said earlier that that pink is pretty opaque, correct?
Yeah, it's definitely the most opaque color. I was trying to read the back of the label and I can't actually, I don't know if Michael Harding says whether they're.
So if we wanted to mix that pink just to play with, we could use quinacridone magenta and mix it with white to come up with something close.
Yeah, and probably a touch of Indian yellow. I'm not positive, yeah. So you have this interesting purple. So literally I'm like looking at these colors as I'm painting them, in real life, I would have experimented with this more on my own and maybe mixed more mother colors, but this is kind of fun just to kind of discover together what I get when I get a weird palette like this. As I'm mixing a color, I'm like, oh, what if I added a little more blue? What if I added a little more white? Just to neutralize some of these darks, especially if I want these darks to play off some of the warms.
You probably said, but is that a titanium white?
Yeah, pretty much I only use titanium white for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the one part I don't experiment with too much. Not saying I don't have every kind of white in my drawer, but so I was gonna start with the sky. Let's go ahead and start with the sky and let's just see what happens. So we've got and again, I'm still just not using any medium, no paint thinner, nothing. I just find pure paint for me gives me better control, especially in the first layer. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would have thought you could paint sky with green?
I know.
I'll bet this green gold would be great in skin tones for portrait painters.
For sure, yeah, you can kind of see that it wants to neutralize pretty well. Just kind of trying to get this covered back here, just to see kind of what happens. I can come back in with more painting. I'm kind of scrubbing it in. Just kind of allows me to get it covered. So I can kind of see how these colors might play together.
Mhm.
Just trying to really, again, I'm just continuing to think big shapes, big values. You know, getting this sky covered will help me to read the other colors a little better. Curious what's going to happen with these little areas where the gold undercolor is kind of showing through that green gold. You know, whether it's going to be toxic or whether it might be really dynamic. I have no idea. Again, first time, so I'm not going to be too attached to this. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try some odd color combinations. There should be, hopefully, because we're using a limited palette, you know, just one yellow, which is our green gold, one red, which is our crazy pink, and one blue, which is our ultramarine blue. Just by combining them, I should get some really interesting harmonies, I hope. Again, it's an experiment, so.
The trees are already on fire. Yeah, it looks amazing.
It's going to cool down this background line of shadows here. Hopefully that will begin to create a sense of depth and perspective. Just so I can begin to understand where things are in space. How far back? What's happening to the diffused kind of soft morning light?
If I were to mix those colors, because I don't have them out of a tube, based on kind of the formulas we've covered already today, I've got 2 blues and I've got 2 reds. I just would need another yellow. I've got magnesium blue and ultramarine. And
somebody didn't listen to the assignment. This is limited palettes.
I don't have your colors.
Nobody does. They're crazy. No, I know. Yes,
Yeah,
you definitely can. And what I would suggest if you do that is that you just mix up good sized batches
and just
of
use
those colors so that you are back to kind of having a limited palette. And I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, I'm not worried too much about these colors. They are so particular, so weird. You know what I mean? It's not about these colors. I hope more the example is that color almost doesn't matter as much. It's what can I do with these colors to create the effects that I kind of want from this. I don't know. Hopefully that wasn't mean to say it like that, but
It's understandable.
yeah, I'm chasing colors to a degree, but really it's about the values. It's about the lights and darks. And then I am thinking a little bit about the temperatures. Like, okay, I want the tops of these trees warmer than the shadows, also a little bit lighter. That pink is kind of beautiful, but also kind of chaos. So let's bring a little more light into some of that.
I'm really starting to be able to see the depth of that in the background there. It looks really good.
Right. And that is because of warms and cools, and then my darks aren't as dark as these darks.
Right,
I
right.
kind of brought in some of the cool light. You'll hopefully notice too that the light is, I presume, coming from behind this tree and raking across here. So this side of my trees is actually going to be a little warmer than this because there's a soft atmosphere, right? A hazy atmosphere.
Mhm.
That will in fact warm up the shadows because that haze is getting caught. You see that?
Mhm.
We'll get caught into that haze as it's coming across. I love that.
Yeah.
Not this, not what I just did, but I love when that happens. And just like that weird, angry Norwegian guy was painting, like just the values matter more oftentimes than the colors. Like I can come in and just, even if I'm not matching exactly, it will help me to read and tell what's kind of happening, especially if I'm keeping it sort of impressionistic and loose and yeah, the interesting thing is my instinct is constantly to look for a yellow to warm things up. And I have to realize this is about as yellow as I get, which is kind of cold. So if I want heat on my light, but I want it to be light, I just have to go, well, that's as good as it gets. Let's hope it works. Again, I can come back in, you know, these are just fun challenges. I can come back in and, you know, add all the colors I want. I can come back in, you know, this is just, it's like that 30 brush stroke challenge, right? It's just, let's see what happens and then we can adjust it.
Is there a particular reason why you might not wipe away the areas you want a little hotter so that yellow that you put down as a base coat pops through?
Yeah, but it's reading is kind of cold because it's got that greenish tint to it.
Okay.
But yeah, in these trees, I'm hoping I already kind of covered up a little more than I should have probably. But yeah, you're right. I could have left some of that transparent gold. But I'm also trying to kind of paint this like, again, like a plein air more, or like a alla prima kind of wet into wet. Alla prima means just paint it all at one time. I just kind of want to attack it and just, let's just see. Whereas sometimes with the wipe away and the, you know, having all these beautiful undercolors in your painting, I find that I can try to protect them so much that I lose some of the energy and zest in the painting. So I'm trying to find that happy medium, Gail. That's just like a constant battle with me right now of, you know, I love those underpaintings. I love that wipe away, but then I become overly reliant on it and become cautious and scared, which is not somewhere I want to be in my paintings.
I'm really liking the pink in the tree there. That
Yeah, it looks nice.
Right. And I would never choose to paint that. And if I went out to this scene, I would never see this, but I'm kind
Right.
of being forced into odd decisions.
yeah, looks great.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll have to have a wrestling match after class to decide if this is even close to being a totalist painting. Maybe my
Very-
class should be named Totalist Paintings and Other Stuff.
It has like a autumn vibe to it.
Yeah.
What did
And I have an idea too to even make it more here, just a little bit. because I can't, you know, there's only so many things you can kind of know. You try to paint in an educated manner, you try to kind of guess, you try to kind of have your assumptions, but at the same time, you have to be very open to that dialogue with the painting of what's happening. Do I like what's happening, or do I need to, you know, change it? But sometimes you do like it, and then it goes, okay, well, that means other things need to change, which is fine. I think that's the most fun. If I was so good at painting, or able to just really see it all in my head and get exactly what's in my head onto the canvas, I don't know if I would like painting as much. I really like the call and response, almost kind of a thing to painting, of just, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Accidental paintbrush stroke. Let's do that. Oh yeah, that's a good thing. Weird color mixture that I just happened to accidentally make. Let's
Happy
use that. And so I really enjoy the unknown. But you know, not always. Sometimes it's the most frustrating thing in the world when it's just not doing what you want it to do. And
Did the blue and the pink only make a gray, or will it make a purple at all?
oh, let's try that here in just 1 second. I want a gray blue here. In fact, I want it lighter than that.
The sun needs to be like very reddish to have this effect on.
Yeah, or the trees need to be very colorful already. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. All right, I'm going to jump past this because that's my next instinct, is to get into this kind of nonsense. But I actually want to try something. Let's turn the lights off too, so you can kind of see it. I already don't like this crocodile that I built, and then another little crocodile hanging out with it. Maybe I do. Maybe it's 2 crocodiles. This okay. But I'm going to try cooling that sky down. Grab a little blue. Grab some of that green. A lot of white. Touching my pink. I just want to make a purpley gray. And let's just see what happens. Because just like you guys were thinking, is the light needs to be pretty strong coming across here, right? And it doesn't feel like that. It feels like all of it's kind of equal lit.
I like that. The color.
A little more pink. Create a transition. A cool grayed down pink. More white. There we go. I hope. So hopefully that made the left side of the scene feel a little warmer.
Yep.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
It's pretty.
You can-
Yeah.
It could even make it cooler. Let's see, this might be getting overkill here. But now I'm hoping that it feels more like the light is traveling across. I also feel like you see this part right here where it's bending down.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that light doesn't work because the light's coming straight across. Simple, hopeful fix. Let's just
Mhm.
Darken that. Again, I'm thinking, how is the light traveling this area too? Maybe a little light. So let's grab some of this kind of darker paint, a little more neutral.
Excuse me.
Taking a little bit longer than I wanted. But I sure had a fun time with it and can't wait till after we look at you guys' work to kind of get back in here and maybe play with some of this. I'll grab a smaller brush and let's just mix up a big pile of dark again. And let's go crocodile hunting, shall we?
It's a turtle on a crocodile's back.
What's that?
Turtle on an alligator's back.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, for me, so impressionistic. You haven't seen me like wiping in or scrubbing away or yeah, I sure have fun doing these sometimes. Where it's again more impressionistic. It's definitely wet into wet and just kind of teaches me or reminds me that I've got multiple ways to approach the canvas. And sometimes it's very spontaneous, so it has that feel to it. I hope that it doesn't feel belabored. It feels like Mike Orwick saw something pretty, had 15 minutes to capture it and tried his best and somehow forgot all of his colors besides green.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I could just keep coming in. I can smooth out areas. I can add all the grasses I want. I could add some ducks. I could bring my crocodiles back. This is called Beaverton Creek. It's the town I live in is called Beaverton, which is a weird name. But this is the creek that the town is named after. And I have to imagine at some point there were tons of beavers. Now I only know of two, but they were the ones that dammed this recently and made it into a big wetlands versus before it was just a stinky creek. And I'm so thrilled that thus far for the last couple of years, they've let it stay dammed up. And it's so neat to see all the animals that are visiting it and all the flowers that have moved in. And I love having a couple interesting little wetlandy areas and wildlife preserves near my house that I can just visit in different seasons and just see how they're evolving. And as we become more nature conscious with our parks and as we let nature be more natural, I guess. That comes from a funny story. And the other park across the street from this is a great big wildlife refuge. And I was in there one time, my daughter was taking a survival or whatever camping class there. And I was in the office waiting for her, and this couple came in and they were just so mad. They'd been out hiking on the trails and they were like, there are so many mosquitoes here. You guys got to do something to kill the mosquitoes. They're like, well, we let them live because it's a marsh, it's a wetlands, and tons of the animals feed on them, and it's part of wilderness. And I'll never forget what the gentleman yelled at the lady as he walked out of the thing. He's like, your wilderness is too wild. And I
Funny.
just thought that was brilliant. I loved it so much. But it's true. I mean, yeah, you got to wear mosquito repellent to go into those woods because it is filled with wetlands and creeks. And but I just love that made him so unhappy, is that it was really quite wild in there. I'm like, it's not made for you. You just get to come into it. All right, I'll stop wasting everybody's time. But what I would do is refine this, and whether, you know, I'll look at it, decide, do I want to keep it really loose because I see that this is all sloppy and messy. I also created 3 striations, which are equal here, which I'll have to deal with. You see that?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's easier to usually just get rid of one.
How would you do?
I would just get rid of it. Usually less is better than more. But the main thing I want to do is just not have balance, you know, 3 stripes. I want to keep my wilderness wild, right?
Right.
Yeah, I like to remember that a lot of times when I am uncomfortable getting bit by mosquitoes or chased by hornets or whatever else. Even in that same park where I was just telling you the mosquito story, they have signs all over that are the owls have been attacking people. And people are like, well, we need to, you know, trap these owls and get them out of the park. Like, that's ridiculous. We are the guests.
Send them to my house.
Yeah. Oh, I love them. And it's so fun when you actually see one of them just sitting in, sometimes they're just sitting right over the top of the trail. Like you just walk underneath them and they just watch, but I wouldn't want to get hit in the head by one either, but
Probably because they stopped the mouse that was going to run across the trail that he'd have a clear path to.
I just figure, yeah, who knows? Maybe somebody has something decorative in their hair that looks like a mouse. I don't know.
Sean,
All right. Well, I can keep painting forever, as you know, and I'll just keep fussing and but I that was kind of fun. Those colors are, again, not a palette I would probably ever do. So what a neat challenge. And I think it could be argued that this is almost tonalist.
Yeah.
Tonal. We'll just go tonal. Tonalist adjacent again.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
bit
good.
Very
light.
pretty.
Yeah, I mean, messy, sloppy, kind of energetic and awesome. Crocodiles, I kind of wish I'd have left them. I don't know what I just made, porcupine crocodiles. But let's take 5 minutes and then come back and look. I don't think there's so much new work this week. Are you guys okay if I take a 5-minute break?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
All right, we'll see you right back here in 5 minutes and take a look at whose work is there. Thank you, guys.